everyone, and welcome back to the Hystorians Podcast. I'm Des.
And I'm Liz.
Hey, Liz.
Hi, Des.
I am so excited about this episode, but also a little nervous.
Yeah? Why?
It's a topic that I really wanted to do and was not willing to let go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that there was not a lot of meat on the bones, but there was more meat on the bones the more I went down the rabbit holes around it. So I think we have a fully fledged podcast episode today, but I'm going to need y'all to strap in for the wild ride of this.
What do I always say? Follow the rabbit holes. Be Alice.
I'm not a rabbit hole girly, though. I'm very much so like, I want chronology.
I don't like to get your nails dirty.
Person born, things happen, person died. I like it wrapped up with a nice, neat little bow.
Except life isn't a nice little neat bow.
No, it's an intertangled web.
Yes.
But I like to follow a singular string. And this was a good exercise in not having that happen, and instead kind of going where the information was taking me, and instead putting it all together as an interesting pie of sorts and having that bake.
So you got the full Liz experience.
I did on this one. So
Liz's approach to research.
I think that this topic, while it is history focused, and I tried to focus on that element of it, I think it is impossible to cover this topic without also having it bleed into anthropology, which is what my undergrad was in. And it's because it's something that we still do today. So it goes into current culture, but also I think that there are elements of it because it's cross-cultural that kind of bleed into that anthropological, almost cultural anthropology branch.
I love that. I'm very excited because truthfully, my next episode kind of does the same thing a little bit. It's more of a concept than an event.
Yeah.
So this keeps happening where it's kind of like we somehow just things work that way out, where it's like, oh,
it all worked out in the end
somehow. But we were pulling out our hair the whole time.
Yeah. So tell everyone what the prompt was that I gave you.
So I was at work just pulling out my hair and kind of just, it was a long week, and then I get a ding ding on my phone. It wasn't a ding ding, it was a vibrate. And Desi just says, "Oh, I have your prompt. The evolution of fairy lore." And I went, "Give us nothing, queen." Just kidding. Honestly, I was excited because I love folklore. I love fairy tales and fairy lore.
Well, and the reason I chose it was because when I always test out the prompt. When I tested it out, it popped up with all the key points I wanted to hit. So I couldn't change it without also changing the results you would probably get.
Yeah. And so, but also I kind of approached it as history approach, of course. We're called the Hystorians. And so I was like, oh, I've never even really thought of that. But I've always kind of thought of fairy tales and folklore as like a moral influencer, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
But I'll start from where I began. So there was one article that went in depth and did a historical approach. And it was interesting because it said that in early and high medieval Britain, they didn't have fairies. They didn't have that lexicon, but they did have elves, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
And elves then morphed into what we now know as fairy folk, the fae, So there are medical texts that had remedies for illnesses that were caused by fairies.
Oh,
and so that's very interesting because you can tell what people believed in medical texts, because it's like, oh, they believed that there was a hag.
Showing their cards, they're saying that there is fairies.
Yeah, or like
that boil, that's a fairy boil.
Like there is a hag in this wood near this town,
and that's why my toe hurts.
Of this specific doctor, and that's why they're like, hag witch stew, eat it and you won't be cursed no more. It's like swamp hag witch stew. So yeah, it's very interesting. I would love to dive into like what experiences are able to be found through medical texts. and everything. So illnesses that were induced by the Fae or fairy folk were like rashes, bruises, unexplained or random pains. So I would have blamed my back on the Fae.
It's like a just a given reasoning for why things happen that we don't know why they happen.
It's a funnel for your ire, essentially, where you're like, nobody is at fault on this, but somebody's at fault.
Yeah.
So and they were referred to by some people as like monsters or demons, while others said that they were like beautiful and sensual.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were like, especially if they were female form. And I was like, hey, yo. And so I see, and again, I see them as morals influencers, like
a way to convey a message almost.
Essentially, like it, as if, and this is not to denounce or demean, but like it's Santa. It's children behave, you will.
Yeah, this is what's going to happen.
And so behave or the fairies will take you away, essentially.
Right. There's a good and a bad.
Yeah, and so I also thought of the Tua de Danann, which was like the fairy kingdom.
Oh, yeah.
In Ireland. So that's folklore, folk tales, and very early in history.
Yeah.
And so those they are not what you think of fairies. They were, human form essentially.
Right.
But
yeah.
Not humans.
Yeah, they populated that class of the other.
Yes. So they weren't these tiny little things with wings that you think of. But I think of fairy lore as an explanation for the unexplainable.
Right.
For people. An unseen to be pointed to for bad fortune.
Ah, yeah. So that's
Sorry.
that's a great explanation. That's a great summary. The main thing that I'll be pointing out is kind of how fairies have changed over time.
Yes.
Like you mentioned, when we think of fairies, like people who, know what fairies started out as,
mm-hmm.
when we hear of like these small, almost pixie-like fairies, that's not where it started out.
Yeah.
So it's good to get an idea of what that looks like for today's topic.
This is a fascinating topic to me because I've always kind of wondered what that evolution was.
Yeah.
And so thank you for doing this research for me.
Oh, yes. Anytime.
Thank you for teaching me.
So on with the show. I'm hoping I didn't give myself away earlier this week in our talking, but I probably did because I always do. I'm very bad at that. But our topic this week is actually going to be the tooth fairy and other worms and rodents.
Okay.
Now, you don't think those other two, worms and rodents, should be included with this, but you're going to find out why they are. Now, these are the rabbit holes that I experienced, okay? Because my initial thesis was I want to look at the tooth fairy. Well, it turns out the tooth fairy is a very complicated concept.
Yes.
And it's going to tie into not only the history of teeth, it's going to tie into the history of tooth ritual and also the history of fairies. So it has a couple branches that have culminated to create the tooth fairy in what we consider like this modern concept of exchange.
I am sad. I am excited.
I was so worried I was going to give this away earlier. We were talking about going to the dentist this week.
Oh, I did go to the dentist.
And I said, I have the perfect topic for you this week.
Hello, my dentist.
And you didn't blink. And I was like, I hope she doesn't catch on that this is what I'm doing it with.
No, I would probably steamrolled you. And just to tell you that my dentist literally followed the podcast on Spotify while I was there.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And so thank you. Shout out to my dentist.
Yeah, shout out to them. We're going to be talking about just some really fascinating fascinating stuff about teeth today. So without any further ado,
this is amazing. Oh my gosh, very on topic.
I refused to let this topic go because I wanted to do it so badly. I was like, you know what? These rabbit holes make sense.
Yes.
So before the tooth fairy, going back to antiquity, people have kind of, in a weird way, have always been obsessed with their teeth. And I mean this in every which way. The cutting of teeth, superstitions on teeth, especially about like the placement, and toothache. So there are plethoras of charms and tricks to influence teeth over the centuries. And I did not know this. This is a very reoccurring theme in human history.
Mm-hmm.
And the weird thing is that nearly all cultures have some form of teeth ritual.
Well, it's interesting because, and this could just be my dumbassery, was I wonder if it's because it's one of the only things and times that we see our bodies grow new bones.
I mean, maybe. There's going to be a lot of theories.
Where it's like, whoa. And also it's like our teeth are what makes us omnivores. Wait,
right.
Are we herbivores? Omnivores, yeah. That's the right thing.
Yes. So diving in first to the tooth side of this tooth fairy dilemma, we have the culture of tooth cutting. So what that means is, when you lose your teeth and you grow new teeth, that's what tooth cutting is. So when babies cut their first teeth, it's that verbiage.
I was wondering, I was like, oh, I just thought it was like when you're teething and cutting your gums. It
cuts through the gums.
Yeah.
And that's where it comes from. To shed teeth is when you lose them.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to jump around because this is a very multicultural approach to this, where we have multiple time periods and multiple countries coming into play with this tooth cutting lore.
Yeah.
So a couple examples that I have is that in Elizabethan England, so looking at the mid to end of the 16th century, also known as the Tudor era around then, to be born having teeth meant that the child was to be a tyrant or demonic in nature. So that was an idea that having teeth as a baby was a bad thing if it was too soon. So if it was born with these teeth, it was like an omen.
Now that was very rare, though.
It is
for a baby.
So it would be an omen. It'd be ominous.
Oh, okay. So they're like literally talking about if a child was born with teeth, instead of being like that child has teeth and it's just like a colicky baby that cries all the time and is cutting their teeth. So
demonic in nature. It made me kind of think of the Jersey Devil thing with the child being born the devil.
Yes.
Like
everything is connected.
What's also important then was the location of the first tooth. So these could have meanings. If it was in the upper jaw, the child may die in infancy.
Oh, shit.
And upper teeth are generally considered bad luck across cultures, like for that to be the first tooth to pop out.
What does it say if I have multiple dreams of my upper teeth falling out?
We'll get to that. I think I do mention dreams, but I think it's just because teeth are so important to us. It has, problems for our psyche.
Yeah.
In Scotland and Switzerland, lost teeth were usually thrown into a fire with salt to prevent bad luck. And this was around medieval times that we believe. Not all of these have a pinpoint date, but they're given in ages or eras. So it makes me wonder why. Why were they thrown into the fire to be destroyed? And some of the explanations that I found around that were that this would prevent someone else from finding it, or perhaps so that the soul would not be searching for the tooth after death, because it was a very common belief that something of your body continues to be of your body. And if you don't have all your bits together, you're kind of screwed to roam the earth forever.
Yeah. And also, like, to prevent someone else from finding it, it's to prevent witchcraft. Because my mind immediately went to, I want a little bag of teeth.
Yeah. It was preventing witchcraft, but also preventing any animals from getting it, because it was believed that if an animal consumed it, that you would get the teeth of that animal. And that's honestly, not always a good thing. Some animals were more desirable than others. So how the tooth would grow back appears to be a big concern throughout history. They often worried about teeth coming back as other animals, such as rats or dogs, rats being the more desirable of those two because they regrow. They're regenerative teeth.
I was about to say, how disappointed were they when they realized that their teeth were not going to come back?
Right. Yeah. And then they would have thought it was somebody got it, or,
well, maybe
anything could have happened.
Maybe burning the tooth worked and nobody got it.
Yeah. Or what if, you burnt your tooth, you didn't grow a tooth back, and then you were like, well, shit.
Guys, back to the drawing board.
Somebody must have cast a spell on me. Generally, the least desirable was dog's teeth. So wolves, coyotes, anything like that, because I think they're a very alarming shape compared to a human's.
They're badass. That's why.
Was seen as demonic almost,
I mean, if everything badass is demonic, then Call me
Sign me up.
Beelzebub.
Zelbabub. And, it makes you wonder, like, people had so many reasons as to why they wanted possession of their teeth. And I can relate to this because if I ever get my wisdom teeth out, my main thing that will influence whether or not I get them out is that I can keep them. I have a weird feel. I just want them. They're my teeth.
Well, also, sometimes when you get your wisdom teeth out, like, they shatter.
Right.
There's a reason they put you under.
Yeah.
So you might...
Shattered or not, I want them bits.
Okay, amen. I'll advocate for you.
Thank you. It's just a weird thing that we have this attachment to these little bits of us.
Truly, but also our teeth are what allows us to consume, allows us to speak to it.
And nowadays they can be symbols of wealth.
Yes.
If you have nice teeth.
Yes, but it's not covered in insurance. Make that make sense.
Well, that's also another reason why, because if you have nice teeth, despite insurance or no insurance, that just is like, wow, you can afford that.
How did our bones become a wealth indicator? A cultural wealth indicator. Do you have
every
a slide
day
on
we
that?
stray further and further?
You got a slide on that, huh?
No, I do not.
Damn.
But in 1879, a dentist was cited as giving 3 main reasons as to why people would ask for their teeth back after they'd been pulled.
I love that somebody asked somebody about this.
Yeah,
like,
I believe this was in a journal called Notes and Queries, which is a super long-running journal from the 1800s where people would submit just like fun tidbits of cited information.
I love that.
It's still going, I believe. I'm pretty sure.
I'm subscribing. What?
Right? I'm don't 100% quote me on that. You can buy bound copies of all the old ones.
Oh, awesome.
So reason number 1 was that it would be unlucky not to do so.
So it held on, that superstition.
Yeah. Number 2 was that the tooth would grow back to be a dog's.
Still in 1879?
Yes.
Wow.
And 3 was that their soul would look for the tooth after death. So these are some repeating themes that we see a lot. And so I think it's really interesting that even in 1879, well after we're starting to see a more scientific approach to dentistry, that these sorts of myths are holding strong in the population. This is where that cultural anthropology comes along.
Yeah.
There was way too many myths for me to include into one presentation. But I did want to give you a selection.
I love
so
this.
Tooth myths galore. In Japan, a new tooth would grow if the old one was thrown onto the roof of your house. You would use the roof for your upper jaw tooth if that was the one that you lost. Or if you lost a tooth from your lower jaw, it was to be buried near the house's foundation.
Okay, I understand that logic.
Yeah, I get where they're going.
It's like, okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I don't want to pick up your tooth, but I'm seeing where you're going.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is still practiced. This was all from I would say around the 1800s, unless otherwise stated. Then rural...
I'm sure there are people that are that's a superstition.
Right. Now it's superstition because so much time has passed.
But also, if you just lost a tooth, hey, I'll do anything.
Right. So in the rural US and Canada, if you didn't lick the gap of a lost tooth, a gold tooth would grow in its place. But if you licked it even once, the tooth would be silver. That was to get kids to stop licking.
Okay, but you still get a tooth.
Right. But I think the reasoning for this one is that all kids lick the gap.
Well, yeah. Have you ever had a...
That's the part I miss the most, is licking the gap.
It's going...
That sounds dirty.
It does.
Hey, man, you licking the gap later this week? That sounds like a drug.
No, that sounds like an action.
You licking the gap later this week? Anyway, so...
I'm calling the police on if you ask me that.
I think it's because all kids lick the gaps of their teeth, that it's just a fun wives' tale to tell them.
Also, it was probably to keep people from going constantly. And it's you know what? If you stop licking that tooth, I'll get you a gold one.
yeah, something like that. And then one from 1598. I loved this. This was a recipe in a medical text to help a tooth fall out, essentially, when you're in the process of losing the tooth.
Oh, yeah.
And this was to burn a green newt to powder.
What the newt ever do to you?
Then, in an earthen pot, melt gum of Ardeen, which I don't know what it is. It was an old-timey ingredient, I guess, with this powder of newt, and to make it into a spurge. Put this spurge under a stone of a ring, well closed, so I'm guessing like a ring of stones, and touch the tooth with the stone that has the spurge on it.
Is a spurge like a puck?
A spurge is a mixture of powder, and it's like a goo.
A goo? Like, so just like...
They're mixing the newt with the gum of Ardeen, and so it's making a poultice.
Okay.
I'm assuming. This is 1598. I mean, they could be... It could be. That's a long time ago.
Yeah, true.
But another cool one I found was Irish of origin, and that's that if you dreamt of a tooth falling out, you will the next day hear of the death of a friend. That sounds very Irish.
That does, but also I always have dreams of my teeth either being wiggly or teeth falling out, and I'm just like, oh Lord. And so I remember thinking, or like
that bad news, or
I always think that it's bad news, or that I'm super stressed usually.
I always think for me it's stress, because to me the loss of teeth is more of like a loss of control kind of problem, where it's like, you know, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So something that pops up even more so than the tooth rituals of like getting rid of shed teeth is the dreaded toothache. This popped up a million times, a million different remedies of like how to get rid of a toothache in history. This would have been a very persistent, everyday problem for these people.
Have you ever had to get a root canal?
No.
I've had one, and it was while I was in undergrad, and I think that I might have ruined my internal organs from, I was for like a month and a half constantly taking Tylenol, ibuprofen, Tylenol, because the pain was so bad and it radiated through my jaw.
Yeah.
It was horrible. And I couldn't sleep for 4 days. I was sitting up in bed. I'd watch YouTube videos of like, you know, the medical demos that
how like, it's going to be done.
Are like cartoons, but like not cartoons. And I'd watch it and I'd say, get that fucker.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, you and thousands upon thousands, possibly even millions of people throughout history have experienced toothache, and you will really understand why there are so many methods then to preventing and solving this.
Yeah, it sucks.
So some of the preventions and cures.
Oh, what the hell?
I gathered a potpourri. Carrying a dead man's tooth. Now, this one I know at least was up until like the 1800s. So finding a dead person, carrying around their tooth to ward off toothache.
You know what? Toothache sucks so bad. If I go before you, you can take one of my teeth to carry around.
Oh,
that's for you.
Thank you.
That's for you. That's true friendship.
Get you a friend that'll give you their dead man's tooth.
Oh, I'm a dead woman.
My personal favorite. Yeah, oh man, we're women.
Fuck.
God damn it.
Having a vagina strikes again.
Truly. So, my personal favorite was there was a tale of visiting a cave would essentially fix your toothache. So, what I'm referring to is called the well at Dunnestein, or Dunnestein. And you would go to this well, drink 3 mouthfuls of well water, and spit it onto a rock by the mouth of this cave. And that was said to help you.
You know, sometimes when I hear these things, I just want to be... Only time that I wish that I could time travel and not touch a single thing. Like, literally,
I want to find the spitty rock.
I just want to, like, third person narrative, like, witness the first person to do this and that sequence of events.
Yeah.
And being like, okay, it's 3 drinks,
I feel
not
better.
2.
Yeah, holy shit. Okay. Well, spit, rock. Cool.
Okay.
Like,
3 mouthfuls.
3 mouthfuls of well water. I also wonder if this particular well had like a good strain of bacteria or something.
Yeah, or like
was antiseptic in some way, shape, or form. Like the plants around it might have been antiseptic. Who knows?
Who knows? But honestly, it's like I'm just thinking of our modern day well water and very
Right.
sulfuric.
Yeah.
Sulfuric.
Yeah.
And I'm like, would that help? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but spitting was a common theme. My second favorite was.
Well, you also don't want the pus in your mouth or
No.
like the infection if it's based in a
So
an
rinsing
infection.
and spitting was probably beneficial, at least to help temporarily relieve the pain.
Yeah.
Now
help with healing, hopefully.
Yeah. Now, spitting into things was very popular because another way you could do this, cited in 1863, was to spit into the mouth of a frog to transfer the toothache. # spit on that thing. But it's a frog. What does frogs ever do to you? You imagine the unassuming frog bouncing along. Somebody picks it up and he's like, huh, what's going on? And he opens the mouth.
Here's what I'm imagining. Someone goes along, picks up a frog. Frog's like, it's finally my time. I'm going to get my kiss to be turned into, get slapped, choked, and then spit in their mouth. Like the common whore that they did not think that they were. They thought they were a prince.
No, so that one just gives a really fun visual, I think.
It does.
So I'm like, can you imagine just like someone walking around, oh, frog.
You know what? My tooth has been hurting and I see a frog over there.
Yeah.
I used to love catching frogs. My grandpa would take me fishing and I would go on the banks and just catch frogs.
So, well, apparently they were very useful. You had no idea about how to utilize frogs their full potential.
They're dumb, though, also. I think I caught the same frog like 3 times.
Oh, yeah.
Poor frog.
Poor frogs. Another more religious method that was used, at least that we know of, about 1,000 years ago in Britain, was to create what was called a St. Peter's charm. So that just essentially involved, a manifestation almost. You'd write down that you'd want to ward off the toothache, and then you would essentially fold it up so that nobody could see it, and you would say a prayer and you would keep it on your person. It's very parallel to what we use as modern witchcraft.
I was about to say, but no, witchcraft is of the devil.
Hey, they're Catholic. They're the most pagan of the Christians, and that's okay. They won't like it, but I'll say it. I respect them for it.
Also, they're stained glass.
Yeah.
Hello.
Beautiful stained glass. Little incense burners, little chant.
Also, the running through, I know that it's not everyone, but I love the tradition of running a statue of Mary through the streets.
Yeah. Word. So a little bit moving forward time-wise, moving to the 20th century, a cure that I found in 1937 in Hungary called for taking 32 flowers, the kind of which is lost to history. We do not know which kind they were referring to. But taking these 32 flower blossoms to a mountain, sitting on a rock, and inscribing a circle with the flowers. And you were then to chew each blossom separately and spit them out in turn. And then say, Christ was 32 when he died. I have 32 teeth and have chewed 32 flowers, mountain. Take the pain away from them and make them strong as you are. It's a big reoccurring theme. You're going to hear me say this a lot. Reoccurring is that there was these Christian minglings with it once, like witchcraft was not as well received. Mm-hmm. So a lot of associations.
I'm wondering if it's a flower
that had antiseptic qualities. Yeah, you don't know.
Or just with a numbing agent.
Maybe.
Like chewing I don't know if peppermint has a numbing agent. But I don't know, something like that.
Because it's lost to history, we don't know what exactly.
It's like, no, you need to sit down, take time to chew some of these, and it will feel better. You know what? Fuck it. Say
a whole prayer.
Say some prayers, okay?
So, would you still love me if I was a worm? I had to title this slide that. So there was a very consistent belief paired with this toothache vein that had lasted since ancient times, that toothaches were caused by worms.
I get it, though.
I get it, too.
When your nerve is being irritated, it feels like something wiggling.
Yeah, something going on in there. Now, this goes back possibly to ancient Egypt or the Near East, but we know definitively at least it was around for the Roman Empire. Now, in medieval times, they thought that it was caused by your humors being out of whack, and this would allow the worms to more easily infiltrate your body because your like immune system was down, essentially, in modern terms.
Mm-hmm. I remember learning about the humors when I was younger, and I was like, oh my gosh, comedy genius. Oh, it's pus.
Oh.
I don't want to learn about this no more.
But around the 18th century, a dentist called Pierre Fauchard in Paris rejected this worm theory in his 2-volume work called Les Chirurgiens Dentistes. I'm going to butcher that because I don't speak French, but that was in 1728. And essentially, he kind of was like, hey guys, it's not worms. It has to do with an outside influence on your body, but it's not worms. So, yeah.
Hey, it's these really tiny, tiny, tiny worms called bacteria.
So he essentially set forth like this domino effect of, dentists picking up that, hey, let's look at this more scientifically. It's not worms. It could be a multitude of things. So anything at this point that was talking about tooth worms was considered superstition, though this did not die down until the 1800s. People still believed it to be tooth worms.
Also, what is usually accompanied with the association of a toothache is a
holes, cavities
bored into your tooth.
Yeah.
And what bores holes to get into something?
Little worms. Little parasites.
I see where their brains went, but now we have more information. And it's A-okay to learn new information.
Yeah. So this is when I wanted to include a note on the role of modern dentistry as we get closer to the tooth fairy's creation.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I forgot we talk about
that. Yes,
that
because the tooth fairy is a modern creation.
Oh.
And so that is what was very interesting to me.
Hallmark.
Yes. So the role of modern dentistry, I wanted to include how this could play into why we need the tooth fairy, right? Why we need that visual to stick around. So in 1828, the American Dental Association creates the National Board of Dental Examiners. And what this does is it creates a greater appreciation for the scientific approach of dentistry. So we're seeing a move away, from the land of toothworm back in the 18th century to, hey, let's look at the cause and effect of these things and what needs to happen. So in 1943, the American Institute of Oral Biology was created. And what this did to help build upon what the ADA had already done was that it encouraged clinical research for prevention of oral diseases. So prevention is key because the tooth fairy provides kind of an incentive for good oral hygiene.
Yeah. So I'm guessing daily brushing is a relatively in the scope
relatively
of
new concept. Modern dentistry in itself has come a long way in the past century.
Wow.
Crazy stuff. So those wild Victorians, the reason I had you look up fairy, so we've covered the tooth aspects. Now we're going to cover the fairy aspect of the tooth fairy.
The Victorians were obsessed with fairies.
Yes.
And the aesthetic of
so
fairies.
Much so that they created an entirely new aesthetic of fairy. And that's why we see that change.
Love.
The concept of fairies has evolved over the years, and a major shift in the imagery of fairies happened during the Victorian era. Previously, the fae were not to be messed with and were often seen as tricksters. So a good example is the Outlander baby swap, where they're like, oh,
a changeling.
It's a changeling. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had this wonderful healthy baby, and all of a sudden it's a very sick baby. I bet you the fae came in and is a changeling now, and that's why it's so sick and not doing well. And so,
will we ever escape Outlander?
No,
references?
I needed to include Outlander in every single episode because I found a way to do it, and I'm going to do it. So
honestly, work.
So they weren't seen as good things. They were often seen as moral conveyors. Moral of the story, don't do this. Moral of the story, don't do that. For your safety, for your health, for whatever.
Yep.
The Victorians changed all of that when their literature began to paint these creatures as feminine, friendly, and harmless, shall we say even domesticated. So there is this concept called the Victorian literary fairy, and that is what created
Oscar Wilde? I'm so sorry.
Thank you. So this creates that imagery of like the very pixie-like fairy that is friendly, happy, whatever. It's, a beautiful woman kind of thing. So it starts in the Victorian era as being that kind of shift.
Is that also when it became like they're genies as well? They'll grant your wishes?
That might be a little bit farther down the line. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
So their size also changes at this time because they used to be human-sized. And now they get smaller and smaller, whereas fairies were not previously tiny at all.
The Tuatha were essentially gods. They were gods.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, the evolution.
Right. So now we get into the Tooth Fairy as we know her.
Tim Allen's Santa Claus.
Right.
3, I think that she shows up.
So it's not so ancient of an origin story for the Tooth Fairy. As we know them, the contemporary Tooth Fairy didn't appear in literature until 1949. And the term Tooth Fairy was used in a Lee Rogow story by that same title in Collier's magazine then. So this is a post-World War II concept on paper, but there are memories of this custom that go back around to the 1920s. Now, it's very sparse, but there are people saying that there's whispers of that.
I wonder if there were like people's own like familial traditions where it's like...
And we'll talk about that a little bit as well, because there's a lot of factors that go into why.
Because also, if you think about it, like now, my mom kept my teeth, or some of them. She definitely kept my morphed tooth.
Nice.
It was 2 teeth fused together, but then only 1 tooth came back in, and I have all my teeth. So was I born with extra teethers?
Probably. I wouldn't think it's unusual.
It was also where my snaggle tooth came in, so 2 rounds of braces. Woo!
Yeah. So why is this like a post-World War II thing? There's an author called Tad Taluha that did a lot of research on this, and I wanted to kind of explain a couple of reasonings they had as to why this was a post-1950s kind of burst about the Tooth Fairy. So one is that it has post-war influence attached to it. Could you really spare a nickel for a tooth in 1930s?
No.
Probably not.
Not even a penny.
Yeah. So maybe in the 1920s, it was starting to get some hearsay, but when the 30s hit, you couldn't really afford to do that.
Yeah, no.
So the post-World War II influence could be that, hey, we can afford to do this now. There's also reason number 2 being the cult of the child, which is that the concept of having a childhood is relatively new.
Yes, I when I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes. That is another thing that has always interested me, is like, we're 3 generations of childhood having people? Maybe 4.
Having a catered to childhood where you could just play and learn and do all these things is a new concept. It's childhood development. It's a luxury.
Childhood development is very new of a concept, where it's like, oh, you need stepping stones. You need
So this could be
blocks.
Catering to the child through that, with special mention of the movie Rebel Without a Cause, because James Dean influenced parents to care about their children's childhoods.
You know what? Yeah, understandable, because his pissed me off when I first watched that. I was like,
it made them care.
Are you serious? And then I was like, he's crying out for help.
Love and help. Yeah. So that kind of was a very influential film.
Yeah.
That kind of helped people awaken to that.
Oh, I guess we should care.
Yeah.
And yet there's still the people that needed the it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your child's at?
Truly.
They were letting them have too much of a childhood.
Right. And then there's that third one, is media encouragement. Now, this is where you were talking about like Disney. So there was a consolidation of folklore, and fairies became included in films at more frequent rates. So Cinderella in 1950 with the fairy godmother, that was a whole new thing.
She was like full size.
Yeah.
Too. I'm thinking of Mary Tyler Moore. She was one of her first commercials that she was booked for. She was like a detergent fairy.
Oh, yeah.
It was for a detergent.
Oh, I love that.
Why do
For
I know
fairy?
that?
For the fairy
I
detergent?
don't think that it wasn't a UK bait,
Oh, okay.
or like it wasn't. I don't think that it was specifically in the UK. But also, how do I know that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I just know random ass facts about random ass
why we love ya.
actors.
So that's the modern origin that we can trace of the tooth fairy. But there are some possibilities farther back than the 1950s. We have a multitude of ancient origins, but no solid leads that academia can pinpoint out with any sort of certainty.
Mhm.
One of those is the Poetic Edda. So that would be the Viking texts.
I have that.
Oh, that's so cool.
My sister gave it to me, actually.
And in there is like one passage, essentially, that mentions Tand Fei, which means tooth fee. And it was describing a ritual in which the child would receive money for their first tooth.
Oh, interesting. But also, in the Nordic culture, they actually like did care for their hygiene and like, tooth care and everything. So it makes sense that they were like, okay, hey, your teeth are important. Here's money, associating teeth with
a value with your tooth.
Yeah.
It's also possibly from European folktales of giving shed teeth to animals. So sometimes they would leave them out for birds or rodents. And the rodents one is interesting because there happens to be, and we didn't probably know this, I didn't know this until I researched it, is that other countries don't always have the tooth fairy.
What?
There's El Ratoncito Perez, and that's the tooth mouse. So this map is I'm showing everyone a map that's a very rough estimate of who does the tooth rat, that I'm going to call it, and who does the tooth fairy.
I want the crows.
Yeah, the crows, birds. The little shovel means they bury it. This is not an entirely accurate map. This was the closest one I could find to accurate.
Man, and then they put a shamrock on Ireland.
Nobody knew what that meant. Nobody could find the key to find out what the shamrock meant. So don't take this.
It means map. A little leprechaun comes against it.
Don't take this map as anything academic. It is literally just a visual to kind of help show you where I'm talking about. So teeth would be hidden.
Interesting that there's a whole like gap, but then it shows up again.
Yeah. So and if you'll notice in Italy, the south of Italy does the tooth rat, and then north of Italy does the tooth fairy. I'm sorry I call it the tooth rat. It's the tooth mouse.
Yeah.
But El Raton makes me think of a rat.
That makes me think like migration, colonial rules,
also
and everything.
Morals
I wonder why. Yeah.
It just kind of depends. Is your culture more apt to have a human replace the tooth, or is your culture more apt to have an animal replace the tooth? It just kind of depends. So teeth would be hidden behind the mouse hole, furnitures near the hearth, etc. And
oh man, why the fuck did they put another tooth in my fucking house?
Yeah. So it's a very far-reaching myth, which makes it more likely to have traveled to the U.S. and morphed into the tooth fairy, but we're not sure. And it's that once again theme that the rodent's teeth are seen as desirable due to their regenerative properties.
Yeah, I mean, but also beavers have that too. But
not all countries have beavers, though,
they
but all countries certainly have
nice. Beavers, I believe, are a North American animal.
And something that stands out about the tooth fairy's history.
Beavers are big rats, actually.
Yeah.
Ew, they just got flattened out tail.
I like their flattened out tail.
I do too. I'd take a beaver over a rat any day.
Yeah.
So I'm so sorry. I just had that realization. I'm so sorry.
So something interesting about the history of the tooth fairy is that it is one of the very few modern myths, or myths in general at all, that has its own series of economics.
Yes.
So it has its own system, so much so that in 2012, an app was created by Visa, yes, that Visa, to help parents track the going rate for teeth. So it would have parents put in what they were giving their kids, and it would make an average so that people knew what to give their children. Now,
I mean, I appreciate it, like parents understanding what their children's classmates are getting. Like,
right?
Oh, I
That's
got
their biggest
a quarter.
Concern.
Yeah, I got a quarter. I got $5 for my tooth. But also, it's like, of course, it's fucking Visa. What kind of capitalist hellscape do we have?
Right. So
kids are checking the tooth stock.
Yeah. looking at some historical data on tooth price, we see that around 1960 it was about 10 cents a tooth, very high end being like 25 cents, which, by the way, I inquired with my family of what they got. So around late 60s, my parents would have been getting a quarter. So they were actually getting market value for their teeth, which is interesting. Then in 1975, it was 85 cents, boosting not for a long time very far till it was 1990, where it was $1 a tooth. 2005, moving on up, it's $2 a tooth. 2013, it's $3.70. And then, you know what? Teeth weren't doing so well for their rates. It went down in 2015 to $3.19. And now it sits at a current rate of about $5.01 per tooth.
What the hell? The tooth market can keep up with inflation, but the minimum wage can't.
Fucking truly.
What the fuck?
Also, this is dependent upon region as well. This is an average, but the regions affect how much you get for a tooth, I'm guessing because of just economics in general. But the Midwest receives the lowest tooth rates overall.
I was about to say, I was underpaid and underappreciated for my tooth production.
How much did you get per tooth?
50 cents.
You were. I'm so sorry.
I will shut my whore mouth. At least.
My mom, I consistently, I believe, gave me $1, if not $5, depending on the tooth. I told her, I was kind of a brat, and I told her outright, I was like, hey, it's a molar. I'm going to get more because it's a bigger tooth. That was how Desi economics worked.
You.
Right. So that was how Desi economics worked.
Just wait, I'm going to get a text from my mom going, excuse me, we always gave you $1.
Probably.
And I'm going to be like, my bank account says otherwise.
Well, and technically, yeah, you would have been losing. You should have been getting 2, according to the market value.
Nuh-uh.
You would have been 7 or 8.
You right.
Yes, that never fucking happens. All right.
See how quote unquote quick our quote unquote quick math is? That was bad.
Oh, no. I used Visa's numbers to get these stats. I'm not using my own math.
One time I was like, because I had this association. I'm sorry, I'm just lore dropping. But I had the association of teeth equal money. I needed
that's an important note as to why we have the tooth fairy.
I don't think I needed any money. I just kind of wanted some.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, also having a wiggly tooth was fun. It was a stim thing. And so I was like, oh, maybe this one might be a little bit wiggly. So I went in to tell my mom, like, hey, get your
wallet open.
Get your notepad open to contact the tooth fairy.
Oh, right. My mom, bless her heart,
like,
she actually wrote me notes from the tooth fairy.
Oh, wow.
In little teeny tiny font.
I think that my mom did as well. Like,
it was so cute.
in my head, the tooth fairy was Tinkerbell.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thought as well. This is all coming into play later. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I told my mom, and then I was like, oh yeah, I do think that this one is actually like getting loose. And she was like, oh, that's awesome. Go tell your dad. And so I was like, Dad, look, I got this wiggly tooth. And he was like, oh, let me see. And he like test pulled it and it popped out. And I was
oh shit.
And I just kind of looked at him like,
how'd you do that?
I don't know if it was that wiggly. And then I think my dad looked at me startled too, because I don't think that he pulled very hard. And he was just like,
oh, well then.
Go to bed.
Yeah. No.
We just were stunned silence, like
what?
Excuse me?
Well, and yeah, it was always like, I can't imagine the ire of a parent who literally just spent their last like $1 at a vending machine and then they came home to their kid being like, I have a loose tooth. Be like, fuck.
I don't carry cash.
God damn it. Yeah, nowadays, does the tooth fairy have Venmo?
No, but my kid does. So that could be lucrative. Set up a profile from the tooth fairy.
Some people have. I also saw online a picture of somebody putting a Dixie cup on the doorknob saying like, leave money here, take the tooth, like so the person doesn't have to go under the pillow. I think that's lazy. That's a personal opinion. I just think that
work on your sneaking.
If you're gonna bother to do the whole lore, do it fucking right.
I want to see a barrel roll. into the room.
Yeah.
I want to see you check in your sixes.
If you don't want to do it, if you don't want to go in there and put the money under the pillow and make it magical for them, just don't fucking tell them about the tooth fairy, dude.
I want you stepping on a Lego and stifling a scream that could have woken the dead.
Right.
But you didn't. And then when you get that tooth in your hands and you finally get back out to light and you look at that tooth and you go, that wasn't fucking worth it.
No. So that leads us to the question of why. Why do we have a tooth fairy? Why do we do it? Why have we created it recently?
Can I say that I feel like you've answered this? It's the cult of the child, where it's like we want kids, because kids can experience whimsy, and we know that we got to experience whimsy.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want you to feel that. So you try to present them with all the opportunities to do so.
Right. And they're at an age of innocence where they will believe you. And that is one of the reasons that was mainly listed as to why we do this. Parents enjoy the whimsy they're able to provide the children still at the age where they're innocent enough to believe in magic.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So that's one reason. Another reason is economics. It kind of teaches children at a young age exchange. Mm-hmm. So a tooth is seen as a valuable piece of your body that you have created. And so to receive money for it is you find value. Like you were hoping, oh, I need money. I have to sell something though to get money. Yeah. Money involves an exchange.
Yeah. I don't even think I needed money. I think I was just... But you wanted it. Yeah. I wanted a wiggly tooth.
Right. Well, careful what you wish for, I guess.
Yes, damn.
But it also helps funnel worry into excitement. It makes losing a tooth psychologically easier on children.
Yeah.
Because it's losing a part of your body. My story about losing my first tooth was that my dad was taking a nap in the other room and I had an apple to snack on. And I took a bite out of the apple and my tooth fell out with that bite. I didn't swallow it. But
did it stick in the apple or did it just
I think it fell onto the floor and I picked it up. I thought it was a piece of the apple. And I realized it was hard. And I noticed I lost a tooth and I went screaming into the room being like, Daddy, I lost my tooth. I'm going to have to get a fake tooth. I was like, totally blabbering. But then he explained the tooth fairy and I felt so much better. I was like, oh, this is supposed to happen. And actually something good's going to happen. I'm going to get, which Desi loved this, money for this. Well, so it's a psychological aid as well.
Also, kids search for that because at least I did when I was a kid. Anytime that I would get hurt or anything, and while my parents were dressing the wound or whatever,
you want confirmation.
I'd always say, did this happen to you when you were little?
Yeah.
And my parents always were like, yeah. Yep. And I knew they were adults. They lived
it was okay.
They survived it. So I'm going to survive this. Okay, I'm going to live.
It's survivable because it's a medical event almost.
Or are we just anxiety queens from
We are. But I think for a lot of children, it's, it helps with that. The other concept is that it's now considered just a rite of passage. Tooth cutting has always been a very important event for humans culturally.
I mean, we literally associate it with like doing something hard and then being able to be like respected in that field. Yeah. Cutting your teeth.
Right. It has that association for us. So, it's something I find odd is that we have always believed our teeth to be valuable.
Yeah. I mean, you only get 2 sets.
Yeah. It's a limited resource. It's a finite resource. And it's something that aids us in our everyday life. And it's something also that if you don't take care of, it won't take care of you.
Yeah. You can die from tooth infections. That will, it's very close to your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
So in a very roundabout way, that is the origin of the tooth fairy. And despite her not having a very long residency in history, the foundations of her creation have been around since the beginning of time.
That's awesome. Because like thinking of it as a finite resource and everything. And honestly, I'm surprised that we didn't associate the tooth fairy with like having a diamond assessing eyeglass, monocle, where it's like, I see a cavity in this one. I'm dropping it down a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, now it is kind of used as that. It's used to help children practice better oral hygiene because parents can utilize that as leverage.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
It's very interesting. Also, an interesting note that I didn't include in this on the appearance of the tooth fairy is that about 75% of children believe the tooth fairy to be a small woman. Very Tinkerbell-esque.
I think in Tim Allen's Santa Claus 3, it was a man.
And that's totally there is no
And now I'm like,
hard and fast rules to what she looks like. Some people think she's just a mouse with a tutu. Some people imagine an actual tooth with wings. Some people imagine a dentist with wings. I always thought it was Tinkerbell. Like that was her day job. Like
dang.
Peter Pan wasn't giving her no money.
Neverland's economy is in the toilet. She had to get a second job.
Yeah.
To keep her tree stump.
That's why she's upset when Peter Pan won't pay attention to her. She's like, I work so hard to put teeth on the table. And you can't even acknowledge me over this Wendy bitch.
You're off with your boys all day, every day. And I'm over here in a bell jar? I'm over here in a fucking bell jar? Peter? Wow.
Yeah. So
shaking me on top of you to make people fly? I said you could only roll on me. Only you.
And now you're dusting me around everywhere. Yeah, it's truly
she's the origin of angel dust.
Probably. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope that despite it being a roundabout way to talk about one iconic piece of American folklore, world class now.
I'd say world cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
A feminine phenomenon. I can say that, but I can't say anything else, apparently. Wow. Yes. Well, thank you so much for presenting this, Des. I loved this, and it's something that truly I've always kind of wondered about in the back of my head, where it's like, why? Where did this come from?
Yeah, who started this?
Again, I want to have the time travel device that I can just third person it and see the final time that they get the right sequence, and I want to see the 5th time before that and see what they were trying.
Yeah. Well, everyone, don't forget to floss, because you've been listening to the Hystorians.
Hystorians.